Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily here on this Monday morning edition. Ronnie Rants alongside Tommy Krysan. Today on Sports Shorts presented by LaBerge Casino as TK joins us from Court Street Cafe in the heart of downtown Port Allen. I am at an undisclosed location presented by the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Don't forget, lasportshall.com, lasportshall.com. We've got about a little over 48 hours left, or actually a little over 24 hours left, about 36 hours to be able to get your bids in for the Gridiron Kickoff online auction. Amazing stuff. Over 250 items from over 12 golf courses in the state of Louisiana to restaurants to sports memorabilia, stuff out the Yazoo Hall of Fame. If you go into Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, you can bid on an auction package or two on there. A lot of great stuff. And Patton's Jewelers has a $50. You can buy as many as you don't even have to bid on it. It's just $50. You buy a $50 gift card at Patton's Jewelers, you get $50. You get a $100 gift card. So literally, you can buy 10 of them if you wanted. You can buy 10 $50 gift cards. Excuse me. $100 gift cards to Patton Jewelers, but for only $50. You know what I mean? All right, TK. The big stories of the weekend. LSU, I want to say, survives and advances. They win 20-10 over Florida. It was not a thing of beauty if you like offensive football. It was a thing of beauty if you like defensive football. Of course, LSU had the 5 interceptions, one of them pick 6. The offense only produced 13 points. The New Orleans Saints, another good, entertaining game. I was there in the Dome. Came down to the end, 26-21. The 49ers win, a little more high scoring than I thought. The over-under was 40 and a half. I was on the underside. That halftime touchdown that the Saints allowed with a minute to go, and they let them drive right down the field. Not get a field goal, Tommy, get a touchdown. That was a killer. I kind of felt like that was going to be the difference on the over-under, and it was. So some thoughts on that. Oh, by the way, Saints fans, not good. Yes, not good. I'll tell you about that. Saints now 0-2 and well on their way to not getting 6 wins. The over-under is 5.5 on the season. Joe Burrow out at least 3 months, it seems, with a turf toe injury, having surgery on that toe. That is terrible for the Bengals. Right when they had gotten it going, they had a 2-0 start. Remember, famously, the last few years, they've started 0-2, 0-3, whatever. Well, Joe Burrow gets them to 2-0, and now he's out for 3 months. He will be back, before the playoffs. But that is a massive story in his career in the NFL and all that. Major League Baseball, the playoffs are not too far now around the corner. The Brew Crew, the Milwaukee Brewers, first team to clinch a spot, pop the champagne, do the whole celebration thing. Best record in baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers. The LSU Tigers are number 3, number 4 in the polls. They don't change at all, stay in their same spot. Some may question that spot based on beauty points offensively. And some we've already had 2 Power 4 coaches fired. That's a surprise. Last year, I think there were only 3 or 4 Power 4 coaches fired the whole year, off season included. Now there's already been 2, and we're just 3 games into the season. Virginia Tech and UCLA both have coaching positions open. And you pointed out, Tommy, UCLA. You pointed this out on Sports Shorts Radio. UCLA had 8,000 fans in the Rose Bowl and a loss to New Mexico last Friday. That not only should get the coach fired, that should get almost like the program shut down.
Yeah, and they paid New Mexico 1.2 million, the old paycheck game thing. And and I read some stuff on around it. That stadium's 40 minutes from the UCLA campus. That's like going from here to Hammond, to go watch the game. So, but when you're 0 and whatever, and now they're 0 and 3, and they fire a guy who was a great running back there, Deshaun Foster, who kind of took over when Chip Kelly left. It's a tough situation for UCLA, and they have no NIL pot of gold, as somebody put it. They don't have a lot of fan base that's rabid about the Bruin football team, and there's so much else to do in LA and on the West Coast that who knows when this could maybe turn around. But they'll pay Foster $7 million to go away, and then Virginia Tech. They get rid of their guy after 3 games. A bad start. He'd been there a little longer than Foster, but Now here's the key part of all that. Those players on those two teams, the transfer window, portal window is open for them for 30 days. Now, they're both 0-3, but you got to believe both of them have 6, 7, 8 guys that somebody else might want. And because they hadn't played 4 games yet, they're still eligible for a red shirt. So we'll see what happens with that going forward. And does anybody dive into that portal and get any of those guys from the one of those two teams?
Yeah, it's a very valid point. And speak. Let's talk about the Virginia Tech job. It's funny. The Virginia Tech job and the UCLA job are opening, and the Virginia Tech job is the sexier of the two, and that's a fact. Just because they've got tradition and history and a fan base, and they still get crowds and people that care. UCLA has something that you can't overcome, and that is apathy. Nobody cares. We win, we lose, doesn't matter. And there's no fix because the state of California is broke. It's a public school. They don't have a campus. You're not gonna be able to build a 60,000 seat stadium with suites and club and all that and put it on campus or near campus and maybe change the trajectory of this thing. That's not happening. There's no money. So therefore, this program's in a bad spot, Tommy. I mean, it might be the way of the dinosaur from a standpoint of we'll be looking back on, man, remember when UCLA was such a proud program and that USC UCLA game was the game of the year, watch it on TV in the Rose Bowl with all the colors and the giant 100,000 people and all that. That's over. And UCLA's on the they were 5-7 last year. They're going to be be like Florida State. They'd be lucky to win 2 games a year ago. But unlike Florida State, who had a new Senate stadium renovation and a proud program and reached in their pocket and got it done, and people in a fan base who cared, and look what they've done. They've turned around their program. That ain't happening for UCLA. I'm willing to bet more than a Diet Coke on that. So those two coaching spots are open. Be curious to see who wants them. Virginia Tech, a lot of people want it, but and maybe Tulane's head coach would be a name for Virginia Tech. Keep an eye on that because Tulane is now 3-0 after beating Duke and their old quarterback who left them and went to Duke on a 2-year deal. Reports initially were 2 years, $4 million, and he is gone. He came back. Tulane got a big win, had a nice crowd. And so Tulane's head coach will be a hot commodity, no question about it. A head coach who's not a hot commodity is Brian Kelly, but not for the reasons you would think. Well, wait a minute, they're 3-0. Now he's in his 60s. People always want to go younger, younger, younger. Nobody wants to go older. But Brian Kelly is different. There's a lot of people that have different opinions of Brian Kelly at the moment because of his reaction to say Michael Cobble's question after they beat Florida 20-10. The offense looks meh for the third game in a row. When it was supposed to have a Heisman Trophy winner in Garrett Nussmeier, that my little $100 bet's going out the window there. And this was supposed to be an explosive offense and all that. The question was supposed to be the offensive line. We get that. The offensive line's been but the other things haven't been real good. And he gets asked a simple question I thought was a fair question by Michael Cobble, which was, about the offense. Hey, what's your takeaway on the offense? And before he could really even finish the question, he was attacked by Brian Kelly, who went on this rant that seemed fake. It seemed like a fake rant, kind of. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe that's just how, it's kind of like, Paul Maneri. Paul Maneri tries to get upset and mad. His voice isn't going to get deep. It's not going to, it's not going to be a scary rant. Maybe Brian's like that too. His voice is just too high pitched or something, but it seemed planned almost.
Well, I got no problem with Michael Carvel's question. The media is supposed to ask questions they think the fans, viewers, people that read, whatever, would want an answer to. And that's exactly what Michael Carvel did. I have no problem with the question. And Michael's been around a long time, and it was a fair, legit question. Kelly could have handled it a whole lot better than he did with his answer, in my opinion. And, I don't think it kind of it kind of threw a little damp air on the fact that they did win the game and they are 3-0 and they beat Florida, who beat them last year. We can go down the list, but I think Kelly could have handled it better, in my opinion. And I got no problem with the question Michael asked. And if I had a problem with it, I would say it. There've been dumb questions over the years at LSU press conferences and press conferences all over the world, but that was not one of them. And I think Kelly could have handled it a lot better because the facts are the facts. The numbers don't lie, right? The numbers don't lie. They're like second to last in the SEC in rushing. They're what, 17 for 41 on third down conversions. I mean, that's not the numbers that you have with a team that's going to contend for an SEC title or a playoff spot. But they are 3-0.
It's not the media's job to congratulate coaches. I know sometimes people will ask that question. Hey, congratulations, coach, on a nice win tonight. Your defense played fantastic. But what about your offense? Your offense has really been struggling of lately. Great job tonight, coach. And your defense was amazing. But what about your offense? Like, it's not your job to ask it like that. And other thing too is that look, college football media is the softest media in the world. Here's why. Because somebody like a Michael Bonnet wields an unrealistic and goofy amount of power. All SIDs, and Michael's the SID for football and has been for years. If you're working in the NFL, they can't kick you out of a locker room. If, unless you do something egregious, right? Like you can ask whatever you want. The guys can scowl at you, but in the SEC, whether it be Alabama, LSU, Georgia, whatever, I mean, it is they will scare the crap out of you. They'll take a credential away. They won't allow credentials. They won't ask you questions. They'll look at you, so ugly and mean and all that. I mean, I've seen it done time and time again over the years by SEC media personnel, and it's not the same as the NFL. It's not the same. And for many years, everybody hid behind the fact that, well, they're kids and they're amateurs, and you shouldn't criticize them or get on them or ask them like when you're doing the one-on-one questions after the game, like they used to do. You shouldn't ask them the same questions as you do pros. Well, they're professionals now. They're not amateurs. They're professionals. The zeros might be a little less for some, but they're professionals. You get paid to do something, you're a pro. And these guys are getting paid a lot of money, especially the starters. Okay. And so, gone are the days of, oh, he's just doing it for a scholarship and a free ham sandwich, No, these guys are doing it for hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions of dollars. And so they're pros. So they get to get the hard questions. I mean, Jared Lee, who was doing it for a scholarship and a Rocco's poor boy when he played and threw 17, 18 interceptions after every at his fresh redshirt freshman year, and he went to every press conference. He answered every question after the game. Didn't ever get upset. Got asked the same question over and over because people got jobs to do and articles to write and TV shows to do and all that, and stood there like a man. Nowadays, if anyone threw 18 interceptions, they wouldn't even be out there after the game. They would and they would let them hide. They would let them sneak out the back door or go home, or they'd be like, hey, 2 questions, that's it. Like come on, man. We're paying these guys, but yet the skin is getting thinner instead of thicker when these guys are professionals. Coaches get more, players get more. They should be able to take any question that comes their way.
Brian Kelly makes $10 million a year. He should answer any and all questions. Now, if it's the stupidest question you ever heard, he could give an answer like, "I'm not going to answer that question." I mean, he just, but he's never been warm and fuzzy with the media. Back to his days at Notre Dame, and I'm sure when he was at Cincinnati, he's never been that media savvy guy, and he's not going to change. Brian Kelly's not going to change. He's 64 years old, whatever he is. So but again, I think Michael Caldwell's question was very fair.
Every LSU fan leaving that stadium
Would have asked
was
the same
going, what
question.
the heck is going on with the offense? Every single one. That's not a championship offense. Every single one. Look, that Florida team, Lagway, is awful. I mean, freaking awful. Like, if I'm a Florida fan, bro, you got no shot this year. First off, you have the most difficult schedule in America. This is it for Billy Napier. A nice guy, didn't work out, and he ain't got the quarterback. That guy is not the quarterback. I
Well,
mean, it just physically not the quarterback.
And the
Um,
Gator fans changed his name to DJ Pickway.
yeah, I mean, it was just the way he throws the football. Just to me,
Yeah,
just
he's not
brutal.
a guy.
So so anyway, you won 20-10, but again, the expectations for LSU after beating Clemson on the road and us thinking that was a big win, and now it doesn't look as big that they're 1-2. But after LSU won that game on the road, now the expectation is national championship, right? I mean, that's the expectation, or SEC championship. It's definitely not, to just go 9-3, and that's what this offense looks like. Offense looks like it's not going to be a national championship offense, the way that things are going. Um, TK, the New Orleans Saints, man, they over 50% of the fans in the stands were 49ers fans yesterday in the Superdome. I mean, I would be willing to even bet two-thirds of the fans, TK, was 49ers fans. Embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing situation down in New Orleans. And from a fan standpoint, the team, 26-21, valiant effort. There's some good things that they did. Probably a little more competitive in the first two games. I mean, look, if every game was like it was the first two games, TK, fans are getting their money's worth. Even if they don't win another game, fans are getting their money's worth. Games are entertaining, gives you a chance to win in the end. But I don't know what's going on in New Orleans, but the 49ers took over the Superdome. And this is now the Eagles, the Lions, they all have big crowds. This was the biggest I've ever seen, including the Falcons.
Well, yeah, typically the Falcons do because you can jump on a plane and land in New Orleans real quick and the rivalry, et cetera. But yeah, and they were so loud in the dome, and the 49er jerseys that were present, stark contrast to the black and gold of the Saints. That was something to see. But the Saints sent a message during the week to their fans that we are rebuilding. When you trade for a wide receiver who's had two major injuries and maybe can play for you in 26, and you give up draft picks for this guy, you're basically saying teams that think they have a chance to win don't do a trade like that when they did it, in my opinion. And Saints fans, you got a couple road games coming up. They go to Seattle this week with a 3 o'clock kick. It's going to be a long season for the Saints fan. And I wonder this, Ronnie. I was telling a friend last night. Here on Sports Shows Daily, last November, December, we kind of stopped talking about the Pelicans because they were so bad and we knew they were going nowhere in a hurry. Are we going to stop talking about the Saints in 3-4 weeks because they're so bad and we know they're not going anywhere in a hurry?
It's possible. It's possible.
I mean, we
I
could turn
mean,
our attention to something else. I mean, it's the Saints, and I know you're a big Saints fan, lifelong. And yeah, I tell this story a lot. I was at your house when Garrett Hartley made the field goal to send the Saints to the Super Bowl. You had a gathering, I don't know, 15 people or whatever. And and we both remember that vividly. We were standing right next to each other watching it. I said, "This goes through the goalpost. The Saints go to the Super Bowl." Well, those kind of thoughts are a long way away.
the trade for Polk, the former second round draft pick, who was 36th, 37th pick overall, I don't mind that pick, Tommy. It definitely sends the message that you're planning for the future, but it didn't affect this year's team, right? Because it was only draft picks we're talking about. They traded a 6th round pick, they got a 7th back, and a 2nd round wide receiver who had 1st round grade talent, and had didn't have a great year last year. His first year was a little and got hurt. And so I kind of like it because it's a value play. It's a, hey, we're betting on this guy. We got his rookie deal in place. We're gonna bet on him getting back healthy, and we're gonna potentially get we're trading a 6th, getting back a 7th, but we're trading a 6th, thinking we might have a 2nd, 3rd, 4th round talent. And obviously the Saints probably knew who he was. They evaluated him, they liked him in the process, and thought, man, this guy, we can do something with this guy. So I actually kind of like that pick. Because again, you are playing for the future. Yeah, you might win a few games this year, but no, you are trying to play for determining, do you have the quarterback of the future on your roster? Is it Rattler? Is it Shuck? I mean, that's what you're trying to figure out this year. And you're also trying to find some wide receivers, some young wide receivers that you can build around and do some things with. And that's why you're so worried about that position because they're so bad there. So I don't mind it. I don't know what's gotten into Blake Groupie. He's missed 2 kicks the last couple of weeks. Very makeable short kicks, NFL short distance wise. And that's just inexcusable. In the dome, in his own building. And oh, by the way, Tommy, both of those kicks were gigantic in the scope of the ball game on how things played out, what the score would have been, might have been, how things could have played differently, and all that. You'd have had the ball in the last two drives with a chance to tie as opposed to try to throw a touchdown to win. That's a total different mindset and play calling type situation if Groupie makes his kick. Or a chance to win instead of tie. It's just inexcusable. You can't, as an NFL kicker in a dome in your home stadium, ever miss under 40 yards. And oh, by the way, they missed an extra point. The 49ers missed an extra point from 33 yards away in a dome. I don't even understand that. When you do something over and over every single day, as these guys are professional kickers, they're kick. I mean, they're kicking them from 64 yards. By the way, let's talk about this for a second. Did you see the end of the
Yes.
Broncos Colts game?
No, I didn't see that. I thought you were going to say Cowboys and Giants game.
By the way, Cowboys and Giants, maybe best fourth quarter in the history of
Well,
football. It
41
was up
points
there.
in the fourth
Yeah,
quarter, and
five
then
lead changes. Five
this
lead
dude
changes.
Aubrey hit a 64-yarder to send it to overtime. Ronnie, I'm no mathematician. That ball hit the net. Okay, that
Yeah.
ball would have been good from 70 for sure, maybe even longer. Back to the indoor home stadium thing, and whatever. But no, what? Tell us about the Colts and the
So,
Broncos.
so Sean Payton's on his way to another victory, and the Colts line up to kick a 60-yard field goal at the end. They miss it. It pushes it right. Broncos win. No flag on the play, but not only a flag, personal foul. Moves it to 45 yards. They make it win the game. Okay.
Ooh,
Broncos were up and a personal foul because of leverage. One of the big fat defensive linemen used another player to, he put his hand, I guess, on one of his players to try to push off the block. Now, why are we trying to block a 60-yard field goal? No, I mean, you know what I mean? Like you're always trying to block a field goal, but you definitely don't need to go leverage to block a 60-yard field goal. And instead, and Sean Payton didn't argue the call. I mean, they it was the right call. This Goomba imbecile, instead of good rush, try to get as high as you can. I mean, obviously from 60, you kick it usually a little bit lower than you do from 50, right? The guy misses it. They move it 15 yards closer, I mean, from the jaws of victory to defeat that quick because a fat guy decides to push off of another player to try to get this much extra height.
well,
Incredible.
well, it's not the first dumb move we've seen by a guy in the NFL. How about the ones they let the kick roll into the end zone? Yes, I think that was a Seahawks game, and they run and jump on it for a touchdown because they did. I mean,
Player doesn't know the rules. Yeah.
doesn't know the rules. This guy didn't know the rules. I mean, it's. I mean,
That's
I'm
why,
under
Tommy,
those.
you can't ever assume, assume that makes an ass out of you and me, the old saying. You can't ever assume whether it's high school, college, it doesn't matter what level, you have to teach the basics. Maybe you get through the basics faster, but every spring training, every training camp in the NFL, you should start at the basics like you do 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds and teach them that same way. Teach them how to put their foot forward, how to put their knee, what the rules are. Like you don't assume ever at any level. And Skip Bertman used to do that with the pitchers. The first day of practice time, we would line up in a big circle, all 15, 20 of us, whatever, how many pitchers on the staff. And we would do the 6 steps of pitching, which you do at baseball camp with 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds, right? But again, we did it every time, and probably a part of us thought, "Oh, this is ridiculous. Come on, we know this." But again, you got plenty of time. Let's never assume. And Coach Bertman used to say, "Look, when I teach you something, I'm going to say the same things a lot of times every year at the same times over and over and over again. But the freshman's going to hear it different than the sophomore. Sophomore's going to hear it different than the junior. Junior's going to hear it different than the senior because you're at different points in your career. Things mean different. Goals are different, etc. So you hear the message different and it resonates differently. And that's so very true. And so the fact that in the NFL, you can have a kick returner in NFL making money and he doesn't know that if that ball goes in the end zone, I gotta get on it. I gotta kneel it. I gotta down it. It's a live ball. That's on the coaches. That's not on the player.
That 100% on the special teams coach. I mean, you've got to take time to tell the guys the rules, especially the basic rules. I mean, you talk about Skip Burton. You and I both left-hand pitchers. How many times did we run and cover first on a ball hit to the right side in practice? Thousands. Okay, we got sick of it. We're like, come on, coach, we don't need to do this again. I know what to do. I want to go to the clubhouse. I want to go get a cold beer. No, no, you have to practice it. The same analogy. Special teams players got to know the rules. Offensive and defensive players got to know. What was it? The Donovan McNabb didn't know the overtime rule in the NFL a few years ago when he was quarterback in the Eagles. That's inexcusable nowadays that somebody could not know the rules at the NFL level. High school, I might give them a little bit of a elbow room to wiggle room to say, "Oh, we didn't know it, we didn't teach that." But most good high school programs do teach that.
Real quick, Joe Burrow out 3 months with the turf toe injury, going to have surgery. That is a disaster for the Bengals, even though they're 2-0. Congrats to the Milwaukee Brewers. We told you about the Brewers when we went in August. My brother and I and Louis Garcia and Buzzy Hideout went to a game, saw Paul Skeens pitch. The Brewers rocked them, and that team is really, really good. They're balanced. They are one of the teams to beat. Anthony Rizzo retired from the Cubs. They did a big celebration, and he got on the field, and then he got to go out in left field, sit in the bleachers. Really, really cool. The Cubs did it right for Anthony Rizzo, one of the all-time greats and beloved by his fan base there. The LSU is 3-0 and also 2-0. 3-0 is Tulane. First time since 1998 that both teams started 3-0. And oh, by the way, in 1998, that's a pretty big year for Tulane.
Yeah, they went 11-0, beat BYU in a Liberty Bowl to go 12-0. Didn't win the national championship, but a memorable team for Tulane Green Wave fans, etc. And they were both 3-0. Now LSU is going to be 4-0 after Southeastern this week. We hadn't seen a line on that game yet, but Tulane's got a big one at Ole Miss. Tulane today is in the driver's seat for the Group of Five spot in the playoff position. And if they lose Ole Miss, doesn't mean they won't get it, but it would certainly add to their case. But Ole Miss, 12.5 point favorite over the Green Wave. But LSU, growing up in New Orleans, people were either LSU fan or Tulane fan. To have them both 3-0, I think is pretty cool. And look, I don't have a problem with Tulane. I got a lot of friends went to school there. A lot of friends played not just baseball but other sports there. So I don't have a problem with Tulane. I'm happy that they're 3-0. You said it earlier. Their coach, he's not on the list. I saw the list of possible replacements at UCLA and Virginia Tech. He's not on either of them lists. Doesn't mean he won't be at some point.
Tulane, by the way, this past weekend honored their Hall of Fame class, their annual Hall of Fame class. Joe Sherman was in that class. Of course, Joe inducted into Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame back in June of 2026, the Delgado baseball coach. But the former player and assistant coach at Tulane got into their class. Congratulations to Joe. Sean King, the quarterback of that 1998 undefeated team, of course, went on to play and win a Super Bowl with the Bucks, the Tampa Bay Bucks. And 1998 started off 3-0, but LSU under Jerry DiNardo in year 4 faced 5 ranked teams on their schedule that year, lost a lot of close games, and finished 4-7. 4-7 or 4-8. I don't know if they played 11 or 12. I think they might have played 11 that year. I have to go back and see. But Jerry DiNardo's team only won 4 games that season, and of course that began the beginning of the end where the magic disappeared, and then they really bombed it the next year, and then Nick Saban came in. But don't think that's going to happen to LSU football this year. The transfer portal, as you mentioned, TK, open for 30 days after the Virginia Tech UCLA coaching changes were made. My prediction is that Billy Napier ain't making the season. I said the same thing last year, and I was wrong. I don't think he makes the season. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better for Florida. They got at Miami this week. That offense and that quarterback ain't getting fixed this year. And it's a disaster, and it's just going to continue to be a disaster. And then mentally, those players are going to check out. The heat's going to get so much. The talk's going to get so much. I feel for Rob Sale, the offensive line coach. He makes $1 million a year. He's the O-line coach at Florida, former UL assistant, former LSU offensive lineman. But but this definitely it looks like it's going to be the end. TK, tell us about Court Street Cafe as we get out of here.
Well, breakfast, lunch, dinner, 7 days a week. So a bunch of folks in here eating breakfast this morning. Lunch specials, red beans and rice. Connect with Court Street Cafe on Facebook and Instagram. They do a great job of telling you the lunch special, the dinner specials. They have a dinner special of the week, drink specials, daiquiri machines, full service bar. They put the LSU games on. Steak night on Saturday. Sunday brunch is through the roof. Excellent. You need to check that out. 805 Court Street in Port Allen, just a couple minutes over the Mississippi River Bridge. Jason and the staff do a super job here at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. If you hadn't checked them out yet, you need to do that soon. Don't forget to like and share this show, whether you're watching on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We appreciate you liking and sharing this show. That helps out everybody, from Court Street Cafe to the LaBear's Casino and Tremonti's and LASportshall.com. Like and share this show. On behalf of Ronnie Rance, I'm Tommy Christ saying have a great day, everyone, and have a great week.